Now, do you see the dollar bill?
Yep, we see it now.
All right, good.
Good.
Okay. All right, let's get started then. Okay, sorry for the delay. Okay, so today's topic is notes. And I don't know how many of you guys are interested in notes or how many have ever bought any, but I just got offered a couple of notes to buy, and I was surprised for a couple of reasons. One reason is that they gave me the strike price. And when you buy a mortgage note, and I'm buying it from a broker, when you buy a mortgage note, that's what they refer to the sale price as the strike price. So the note's going to be struck off to me. That's great. Okay, that's the strike price. These two notes both came with strike prices attached, which is kind of unusual because the broker likes to put these things out and they like to try to get the best price that they could get, and it makes sense. So they leave it open. They don't tell you what they want, and a lot of times you'll be in the market for a mortgage note, and you'll make an offer, and okay, you'll make an offer, and you'll never know who got it. You'll never know what the price was that won. So it's kind of weird, but that's just the way the industry is. So let me shrink this. Okay, so I was kind of surprised at this. So not only was I surprised I got a strike price, I was surprised at the price itself. So let's go into this just a little bit because, like I said, we only have 25 minutes, and I need to know how to change that. There we go. Okay. One important feature about owning a mortgage note is that the owner of the mortgage note does not participate in property appreciation. That's a huge mistake if you think that the property is going to go up in value and your mortgage is going to increase. You don't own the house, you don't own the property. So if the property goes up, you as the mortgagee, you don't get the benefit of the appreciation. So that's one big mistake that several investors that I work with they made during their first purchases is they said, "Oh, great, the property value is going up. I'm making some more money." I said, "No, you're not. Your mortgage amount is your mortgage amount." Now, if the property value goes up, what it does, it gives you the warm and fuzzies because now you have a homeowner that's in that property that has more equity in it. So that protects your position, no matter how tenuous it was at to begin with. It protects your position a little more because there's more equity. And why do we care about equity? Because God forbid, if you have to foreclose, you got something to work with. You have some equity to where maybe someone's going to buy it at the sale. There's a lot of ways you can manipulate the foreclosure sale, but that's not the story for today. But more equity is always good for a mortgagee, but not in the way that you think. All right, let's see what the next slide says. Okay. There's a big difference between performing defaulted and reperforming notes. So a performing note, I made some notes here. I'm going to read off the thing, and we can talk about it in a minute. There are two main types of real estate notes: performing and non-performing notes. Each of them has their own advantages and risks. Performing notes are loans where the borrower is current on their payments, providing investors with a steady cash flow, a lower risk due to the borrower's demonstrated ability to make timely payments. So that's what performing sounds like. That's probably you on your mortgage payment. The payment's due on the first, you mail it in on the second, they get it by the fifth, everything's cool. Performing notes are just that. Now, if you owned a performing note that was doing exactly what you wanted it to do, if you were going to sell it, you're not going to sell it for a big discount because it's doing what it's supposed to do. You're getting your return. It's painless. It comes in the mail every month. Or if your note's being serviced by a servicer, you get notice of the payment every month. So performing notes are not going to be able to be purchased at a very large discount. Now, one thing about mortgage notes is they don't perform well in fire sales. In other words, if you own a performing mortgage and you think you're going to put it on the market and get your price within 2 or 3 days, forget about it. They have to be shopped. There has to be the right buyer. But if you lower the price enough, you'll get somebody to come out of the woodwork in 15 minutes. But most performing mortgages sell upwards to 95% of the principal balance. And that's how mortgages are valued or established is the principal value. That's what we're going to base it on. So you sell for 95 cents. Some have such a nice return and have been performing for so long that they sell for par. And what par is in the industry, it means dollar for dollar. $100,000 mortgage, sales price 100,000. So that's par. Okay, so now let me see what else we got. However, performing notes typically offer lower returns when compared to non-performing notes. And non-performing notes, on the other hand, are mortgages where the borrower has defaulted on their payments for at least 90 days. Now, when I'm buying mortgages in default, I would prefer the default to be longer than 90 days. I want it to be I want it to be 6 months, to be honest with you, because there's a shift in the mindset of a borrower when they get behind by 6 months. What happens is they take that money that they're supposed to be making to their mortgage payment and they spend it on something else. So they're getting themselves into a little bit of a prison, whether they upgrade their phones, they buy a car, they do something you probably wouldn't suggest it's fiscally responsible. But some people, when they're in a pinch, that's what happens. So when they're in default for this long, and God forbid any of you have ever had to deal with this, but when I was younger, I got in default on my first mortgage with my first wife, and these servicers call you relentlessly. And back in the day, you just answered the phone when it rang until I decided I'm not going to take this harassment anymore. And I'm just going to go ahead and make the payments. But the problem is the borrowers get harassed by collection people from the servicer. Now, from a note buyer's point of view, the borrower that's been in default dealing with these phone calls for 6 months, and I'm telling you, they're 2 or 3 times a week. The guys that are making those phone calls are only interested in getting the payment current because they get paid if they can get the mortgage current, if they can get some type of a down payment, if they can get some promises to pay. That's what they're striving for. But when you own the mortgage and you're the one that makes the phone call, you're not looking for that. You're looking to solve the problem long term, because when you own a mortgage note that's in default, you're married to that thing. So you need to work it out any way that you can. So let me continue reading from my notes. While the notes have higher risk, these are defaulted notes, they also have the potential for higher returns, as investors can purchase them for a significant discount and implement various strategies to generate profits. Investing in non-performing notes requires more time, effort, expertise compared to performing notes, as investors need to conduct extensive due diligence, navigate legal challenges, and potentially deal with foreclosure or loss mitigation, loan modification. Let's get over that. I'm going to go to the next page. Even though I didn't talk about reperforming, we're going to talk about that in just a minute, because that's what it turns out these notes that I'm looking to buy are. So performing notes, again, you're not going to get a good price. You're going to pay 95 cents on the dollar. These are for cash investors. If you have cash sitting idly, this is where you want to be. It's a safe investment. You have a servicer that takes care of everything. They charge you 5%, and you get your check quarterly or however you have it set up with your servicer. But you're going to pay 95 cents, but that's okay. That's okay. Cash investors for mortgage notes want performing notes, just like cash investors in tax default. They want tax certificates because they just want the return on the funds. Okay, defaulted mortgage notes. I see that jar is empty. There's a reason that's like that. It's because when you buy defaulted mortgage note, that's what you're guaranteed. You're not guaranteed anything. I mean, you're guaranteed the principal amount, whatever that property can sustain at a foreclosure sale if you have to foreclose. But a defaulted mortgage note, its value comes on the buy. If you can buy it for 50 or 45 or 40, and in a perfect world, you buy it for 35 cents, you'll be able to make a buck on this thing. And I'm going to show you exactly. I can't get into it tonight, but what I will do is at the end of this, when I package all these up and I send them out to the people that attended the webinar, I'll send you, and in the link that goes onto YouTube, I'll include 3 or 4 YouTube videos that I teach people more about mortgage note investing. I can't get into it now because we only have 25 minutes, but there'll be 2 or 3 videos that'll open your eyes as to the opportunities. just as I'm trying to open them here. Also, I have a book. I have two books that I wrote on mortgage investing. One is a 200-page manual on how to do proper due diligence. We're not ready for that. Anybody interested in mortgage notes, even if you're just looking around to see what they smell like, you don't want that. But I do have a smaller green book that I wrote for new investors that's real cheap. I think I don't even know what it is, 35 bucks, something like that on my website, but I'll link it all up. But when you buy defaulted mortgage notes, a lot of people don't know this or they don't think about it. Foreclosing is the worst way to get out of a defaulted mortgage note. You don't want to foreclose. It's too costly. The lawyers get in, and that tick tock of their clock running is going to murder you. On top of that, if you're going to buy a property and you're going to foreclose, there's a little more due diligence that you have to do. When I say due diligence, you have to understand what's going on in the sale, the foreclosure sale in that county. Now, I've tried to only buy mortgage notes in judicial states. I don't want non-judicial because non-judicial, there's no judge. It's pretty much run by the plaintiff's attorney. But I want to generate interest, and I'm just not big on non-judicial states. I prefer a judicial state where there's a judge. At least there's an authority that I can go to if there's a problem. Now, it's going to cost you more because the lawyer is going to cost you more, but that's a story for another day. So you're going to buy a mortgage note for 35 cents, and your goal is going to be to bring this note current. If you can get the mortgage note current for 12 months, and you have to have it documented real well, I mean, check numbers, copies of checks, all that stuff. 12 months, you can bring it to the market and sell it. Back in the day, you could sell it for 90 cents, 92, 93 cents. So if you buy it for 30 and you sell it for 90, that's 60 points in a year. There's nothing that you could do in real estate, barring an aberration, that you can earn 60 points in a year. So that's the benefit of defaulted mortgage notes. That's what we want to get into. And that's what I thought I was buying when they sent me these two notes, but no, they're reperforming. And what I want to show you about these notes is pretty interesting. At least it was to me. So reperforming notes, I think I just stepped on it, that a reperforming note is a note that you get reperforming for 12 months. You can go longer, but the price is not going to go up. You can go shorter, 6 months reperforming, but the price is going to go down. Okay, everybody got that? So you got to do it for 12 months, and then you can get your 90 cents back in the day. I don't think that's the way it is anymore. 90 cents. But if you do it, go for less, go for a reperforming mortgage that only has 6 months or 9 months of payments, then you're not going to be able to get as much. So let's go to the next page, and I think I get into it. Okay, here we are. The property value, and unfortunately, I can't read
Quiet.
What does the property value say? Rick, can you read the property value?
190.
190.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so the property value is 190. I can't see it because there's something in the thing here. And the current payoff is 108. And I was offered the opportunity to buy this mortgage for 80,000 or 74.7%. Now, I can't tell you where the property is because I signed a non-compete or a confidentiality agreement with this broker. But the number's a little low because if I have a mortgage on a property that's worth whatever it is, and if the current payoff is 108, I'm going to get closer. I should get closer to 90, not 75%. So I'm a little scared of this price because I don't know if there's something some underlying current that's causing the price to be lower. Maybe I've written to the broker, he didn't respond in time to do the webinar. Maybe it's only a 9-month reperformer. I don't know. Maybe it's the specific seller, but it scares me that he's not getting 90%. So that says a little bit of something about what's going on. And I haven't figured it out yet because I don't buy too many mortgage notes, but that's probably one of the reasons I'm concerned about it. And here's the other one. I think this one's worth 140. So we just have a lot of equity in this one. The current payoff is 48,000. That's the current payoff. And the strike price is 38,000. Now, let's face it. If you're looking to make 10 grand and you want to wait a certain period of time, you'll make 10 grand plus the return on your note. You'll probably do okay if you want to park your 38,000 here. but I mean, there's a lot of equity in your first mortgage. But to me, I need to buy defaulted mortgages because I want to be the seller of that note. I don't want to be buyers at this price. And I'm really disappointed in the price here at 79% because he should be getting more for this mortgage note at 48,000 payoff with all that equity in this thing. He is secure beyond belief, but the price is too low. So I was shocked by the price. And I don't know if any of you guys are buying mortgage notes or if you've heard anybody that's doing it. I'd love to hear your take on what you think is going on this mortgage notes. Yeah, what do you think? Send me a comment or we can talk about it. I think we still have about 13 minutes before we're going to stop the call. And let me know what you think. So there's my contact information. I'm going to take that down because I can't hardly see what I need to see. So you guys don't know how to reach me. Stop sharing. Okay, there we are. Okay. Okay, so does anybody have any questions with regard to what we're talking about? Mortgage notes in general, default, private, reperforming. Have any questions about the specific mortgage that I showed and we talked about this morning?
I have a question for you, Rich.
Sure, go ahead, Corey.
Do you ever look at second lien position notes?
Second mortgages is a specialty in itself, as you might have guessed. Personally, I don't like dealing with seconds because I don't like the feeling of insecurity because there's somebody else that's ahead of me. Now, mind you, I have a second, maybe it's protected. I do have the right to contact the first mortgagee to find out if the first mortgage is in default. That's one of the things you would do before you buy it. The only investors that I've seen that buy second mortgages are those that specialize in second mortgages, and that's all they do, or they have limited funds and that's all they can afford and they want to try to get into this space. So personally, I do not buy seconds.
Okay.
It's a scary proposition when you think about it, because I like being in first position, and I'll tell you why. I'm really good, fortunately, at this one thing. I can contact the borrower and I can bring down that barrier that they have, that they've built over time because of all the collection calls they've received. You know, they're so beat down that I'm pretty good at bringing the barrier down and getting them to trust me. And there's a couple of ways you can do that, and it's all money. I love going to these mortgage conventions and you see mortgage tapes up as an example, and it'll show, let's say it's 100,000 principal, the property is worth 150, so you got good equity, and it'll say that there's $40,000 in delinquent interest. In other words, that's how much interest has accrued since the last payment. And a lot of these note investors will look at this $100,000 note and they'll go, oh, I get the benefit of all that interest. Sometimes you might, but you're better off using that interest as a leverage to earn the respect of the borrower. Because you're going to buy a $100,000 mortgage. If you're going to buy it, you're going to pay, let's say, $40,000 for it. So you've already got enough money in this thing. There's no reason to get stupid and greedy. So the best way to deal with that homeowner is to tell him, look, once that wall starts to fall, Mr. Jones, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to waive all that past due interest. I'm going to waive it. He doesn't need to know I only paid 40 cents for his mortgage, but I'm enjoying the benefit of $60,000. How much money do I need to make on one guy? So being a greedy pig, you're going to get in trouble. Because if you're a greedy pig, that guy's never going to come around. He's never going to make payments. He's never going to be able to realize whatever equity he has, and you're going to have to foreclose. And you think that for that $100,000 or that $60,000 was worth it? It wasn't. It wasn't, based on the amount of time you're going to have to fight with this guy. And God forbid he gets a lawyer. Now it's lawyer to lawyer, and all they do is bill each other. And come on, I don't need any of that. I'd rather work with the homeowner. Let's waive that interest, make you feel good about dealing with me, and we'll get you back on track. So that's one of the biggest problems. And I'm sorry you talked about seconds, and I just went off like a politician onto something else I wanted to talk about.
When you're saying you waive the interest, have you ever just decided, let's just renegotiate this slightly so you can maybe extend it, but maybe change up the terms a little bit?
I will do loan modifications. I'll do trial modifications that if they default, everything comes back. You don't have to waive all the interest, but in the example I used, I probably would try to keep a hair of it and I change other terms in the mortgage. But if the property is upside down, that's the first thing to get rid of it. Just get rid of that interest. And then, in all honesty, what I'll do often is I'll reduce the principal down to $10,000 under the value. For example, the mortgage, the house is worth 150. The mortgage is 200. That's what's going to happen in a short sale, 200. So what I'll do is I'll call the borrower and I'll say, listen, I'm going to reduce the mortgage amount to 140. So you're only going to owe me 140. You see that? Because the value is 150. I'm going to reduce that $200,000 mortgage down to 140. I'm going to give you instant equity. But these are my terms. You have to make the payments on time. You have to give me a little bit of a down payment. There's few things that are connected to it. And if they make a mess and they don't keep their promise, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot for the whole thing. But in most cases, if you're honest with them and you come across as being sincere, you'll get that barrier down and you'll be able to get them to start making payments. Now, don't forget, on that $150,000 mortgage, you're probably into it for what, 50, 60? There's plenty of upside for you. You don't need to waste your time and spend attorney's fees trying to fight over the additional interest. So that's just my own game. That's the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way. So I'm not even suggesting that you try, but I'll put the link in the YouTube video for my little green book. And I think it's called the Green Book of Mortgage Note Investing. I don't know. It's less than 100 pages. It's real cheap, and it will give you some insight as to the mortgage industry and the way I try to navigate it. And foreclosure is not the way to go. Okay, anybody else? Ray, go ahead, babe.
Hey, Rich. So with this whole process, I understand. My understanding is you want to buy it at 30 whatever cents on the dollar, sell it closer to 90. Over the process of getting that note performing again, so you can sell it, when you renegotiate with the homeowner, would you have a setup for like a sure?
Sorry, I missed the one word, right? Would you have a setup for
a deed in lieu of foreclosure? You know, just in case they act up, and then that way you can capture all the equity in the house.
That's one of the items I'll use. I won't come out of the box with it because I want them to understand that I really want them to stay in that house because I really want all the money that I can make after I sell that thing after a year. So I'm not looking to take the property back, but I can and I will. Deed in lieu, cash for keys, you know, throw $5,000 or 10 grand at them just to get out and keep the property intact. So no, I'll use it, but I prefer not to. I prefer not to foreclose. Deed in lieu, I'm still going to have to foreclose if there's other liens on there. So, I mean, that gets them out, but it doesn't solve the title problem yet. And speaking of title problems, the first batch of notes I bought it with a group from Palm Beach. They brought me in to do due diligence on the file. The files were clean. We bought them for 25 cents. It was a negotiated bid. So we dealt with the broker, and the broker said, okay, here's a list of notes. It's going to cost you 25 cents if you want to buy this whole pool. So we couldn't pick or choose. We had to buy the pool. Long story short, we bought a pool, and a lot of them were in Ohio, and a lot of them were in Indiana. They were split. We didn't get to see the house because they're all, I mean, I have a guy that at the time I had a guy that was working for me that was up there. So he went to look at them. But when we got to the properties in Ohio, all the copper was stolen out of the house. And in Ohio, they used copper for all the heat transmission throughout the whole house under the floor. Whole house. All the copper was gone out of every single one. Every single
Yikes.
one. So we ended up taking a loss. We sold the whole pool to some guy in Ohio. But the moral of that story is, that don't buy mortgage notes that you can't drive to, or you have to have somebody on boots on the ground there. Because you're going to try to buy a mortgage note in Florida, it's going to cost you an arm, a leg, and one of your teeth. because people think that Florida real estate is valued in such a way that it's never going to go down. Yeah, tell the people in Naples now where the inventory have gone up 80%. Tell them. So you got to be careful when you're buying. You want to buy as close to home, or you want to get someone that you trust that has boots on the ground in that city. Don't ever buy something that you can't get there in a half an hour, or you don't have somebody you trust in that city. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
okay, time is almost up. Anybody else have any questions? Be sure I have your email addresses because I'll send you all copies of this. Anybody? Jose, I can't believe you don't have a question, Jose. All the trouble you caused me, man.
Actually, I did have a question. These two examples, these were performing notes, right?
They were reperforming, right? What happened is the investor bought it and got them reperforming, and now is marking them up to a price that I think is hurting the market. But what do I know?
Yeah, I got you. Okay. But you typically go after the non-performing, right?
Non-performing is where I can get the biggest bang for my buck. I can bring a solution to the problem, which is what I'm looking to do. I want to solve a problem and be fair to the other side, and that way I can increase the value. So yes, defaulted mortgages is all I ever buy.
This process is almost like when we used to do the credit card default, except that without a litigious process.
Yeah, it's just like the credit card debt that we used to buy, except for we didn't have as big a hammer. In the notes, you have a bigger hammer because you have foreclosure and you're going to take their house. With credit card, all you can do is garnish something or get a final judgment. And it's a little more expensive in notes, as you might expect. 30 cents of 100,000 is a lot more than 30 cents of 5,000.
Right. Okay. Got it.
All right. So listen, this was fun. I think next week we're going to talk about how to find all the money that you need, because there's a couple of guys that have been coming on some webinars I've been attending, and they have no clue what they're talking about. They say you can find money in public records, and you can, and it's so easy. And the minute I tell you how to do it, that's all you're going to do for the next 2 days if you need money. So anyways, aside from that, if there's no more questions now, I'm going to go one more minute, and that's it. I don't want to keep anybody too long. Okay. Listen, so if that's it, everybody in my final judgment group, sit tight. I'll be contacting your judgment holders, or at least doing your work for you, so we can figure out which ones you want to make offers on. You guys know who you are. If nothing else, I'll see everybody next week, 25 minutes, Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. Thank you a bunch. Thanks for coming in.